and on a spiritual level, I would say that surrender is allowing God into the space that you are struggling with, where that struggle lives within you, that troubled emotion, that not being able to calm your mind, not being able to settle yourself, is surrendering up, right?
Mhm.
Surrendering up, which is where the saying let go and let God comes from, and allowing that divine energy to come into your space. Because a lot of times what we're trying to do is change things that we don't have the ability to change, and therefore keeps us in resistance. So by surrendering it
Mhm.
up, that can bring a sense of that peace back in
Mhm.
to our overall system.
Oh, and it's a matter of how do you do it? So sometimes just getting quiet, really
Mhm.
important. Just get really quiet.
Welcome to the Let's Be Real podcast, genuine conversations for authentic living. Welcome to the podcast. I'm Lisa Allshafer, empowerment life coach and author.
And I'm Sondra Pariser, health and wellness entrepreneur and truth seeker and truth speaker.
And today's episode is about going from resistance to resilience, the journey of surrender.
And boy, isn't this the name of the game? Learning how to get through. I think this is the most tricky skill that you can acquire, muscle that you can strengthen. And Lisa and I are very excited to teach you some tips and tricks on how to exercise this muscle.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is so much of what the world needs more of. um, is to learn how to surrender to what is really what we're talking about, emotional surrender, so to speak, to the world and all that's going on around us. But first, before we talk about surrender, let's talk about resistance. And, resistance is something that is at the cornerstone of my coaching and what I coach and what I teach. It's such an important piece. And a lot of people don't even really know that they're in resistance, which makes it which makes it almost impossible because you're not aware of it to let go of it. So, but simply put, resistance is a natural human response to fear or pain. Really simply put. And so when we're feeling fear or pain or any gamut of the emotions, that's more on that negative side, our natural response is to go into resistance. And when I talk about resistance, there's two quotes that I use. Um, they're even in my online program in the very beginning, which are a couple of the free videos from that program. And that the first one is, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. That's a Buddhist quote, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pain is inevitable. We're going to experience pain in this life, both emotionally and physically and spiritually in different ways, right? And the second quote is, resistance to what is creates our suffering. So if what is inevitable pain and we resist that, the resistance of that pain is what creates our suffering. And resistance is such it's a rather large subject. So I'm going to keep it as succinct as possible for today. But ultimately, if you think about doing resistance exercise, like lifting weights, the muscles become bigger and stronger, right? And so when you resist your fear or you resist your pain, physically or emotionally, it too becomes bigger and greater, and it becomes stronger.
Mm-hmm.
And the more we resist it, the stronger it gets over time. So really understanding resistance is important, to really knowing that you're going against your instinctual part of you that just goes into a knee-jerk reaction, into resistance when we experience pain of some sort, right? Or fear.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens though with resistance is it becomes like a repellent. So I'm going to give a little example here. One of our authentic needs in life is to be loved.
Mm.
And when we do not feel that that authentic need isn't being met, what happens is we resist that feeling of unloved to whatever degree it's in there. And we resist it by then becoming needy for love.
Mm-hmm.
And what's it like, Sondra, when someone is needy with you? How does that feel to you?
Well, the need that pops up the resistance the most is, for me personally. I mean, I
Hmm.
think the loved piece is a absolute natural for every
Yeah,
single human on planet Earth.
It's an
And
authentic need, absolutely.
hey, look, I got bubbles again, Lisa. I don't know where the bubbles come from, but I've got bubbles. I guess bubbles just want
Okay.
to be with us today. We'll
Uh-huh.
go with it. So,
Yep.
for it's the need to be understood is one of my inherent um, resistance points that I've experienced
Yeah.
over time is really just to be understood. And when
Yeah.
I don't feel understood, it just happened to me today. But anyway, when I go into a resistance, like, why I don't understand, what am I saying wrong? How am I not communicating this? And it
Yeah.
gets bigger, and then what happens inside, and only because this just happened to me today, I can I start to feel insecure. I start to feel like, oh my gosh, maybe this person doesn't like me. Oh, did I say the wrong thing? Oh, good. So it'll go there in your mind. Well, you're really going to start beating yourself up. So then it spirals. And so at what point in time do you catch it and go, "Ooh, okay,
Mhm. Yeah.
I'm blowing this thing up into a tornado," when really I think I just may have created the whole thing and it's in my head, and I don't
Yeah.
know. It
Yeah.
happens.
Well, yeah, so the more you have a need to be understood, the more
Mhm.
you complicate things to be less understood, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
so if we go back to the need to be loved, if somebody is needy for love and they come up to you and, or attention or need to belong or whatever, and it's really strong, it becomes like a repellent.
Mhm.
And for a lot of people, it turns people off. It's like, wow, you're so needy.
Yeah.
And it's like, and so the very thing we're trying to accomplish, like you being understood or someone else being loved, we're actually repelling it away from us.
Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
that makes us even more uncomfortable. And, either the feeling of unloved or the feeling of misunderstood. So this resistance is a real, paradigm. I mean, it's a paradox. It's like the
Paradox.
more
I
we
was just gonna
want
say, yeah,
something, yeah,
yeah.
the more we want something, the less we have it because resistance is getting in the way.
Mhm,
And what we're really resisting is what we feel. And when we let go of resisting what we feel and learn to process that, which is a whole nother piece of this, what I do
mhm,
is help people to process the energy and teach them how to do it for themselves, is then you start to actually work with the energy, which starts to lessen and weaken the energy. And then what replaces it is, oh, now people are understanding me. I actually feel more clear when I communicate.
mhm,
I actually feel more loved. And therefore, that law of vibration kicks in. And the more loved you feel, the more love you actually attract. The more you feel
mhm.
understood, the more clear you are in your communication style. So it's quite an interesting subject in and of itself. But it's a key piece, well, to so many things, but it's certainly a key piece to surrender because it
Mm.
stands in the way of surrender.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I I have
mhm,
more examples. So when we were talking about, like, oh, what would be really important for our guests to hear before we start getting all of your guys' feedback on what to do next, or what's important to you, or what are you bumping up against? This is universal. This is the
mhm,
human experience. And the more I think, for me, astrology is so, so important because it's for me what makes sense of why are we here? What does it mean to be human? And I don't know about you, Lisa, but this thing that's happening right now is big. You've
mhm,
got wars going on everywhere. You've got mass confusions happening all over the place. And the more wild it gets out there in the world, for me, the more I'm easy to catch the resistance, just
yeah,
like I did today. I'm like, and it came really quick. And it's the name of this whole game. This is for everybody, is to get through this happy. And happy means, surrendering to
mhm,
resistance.
yeah,
I think if the plot of life, if we could just master this one thing.
yeah. Well, it's interesting because happy is such a strong word for you. Right? That's
Yes.
something that even in the video testimonial you did for me years ago, that was part of
Oh.
your, if you want to be happy, just call Lisa. That was the premise of that. But I want to just kind of also go a little bit into that because happy comes and goes. right?
Yes. Yep.
Our perception on happiness, just so the perception, so we're clear on the perception on happy, because I think for you it's much different than for other people, right?
Yeah.
And but it's important to you, and
Yes.
that's, I but it's
That's like
also
one of my
more,
that's a personal core value of
yeah,
mine. It's
yeah.
it's a core value of mine. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, but being at peace, I think, is a part of something that you can maintain kind of more consistently. Being
Mhm.
at peace with who you are, where you're at, because happy can come and go,
And
right?
happy does come and go.
And happy does come and
Yeah.
go. But more of a sense of settled in peace and whatnot. Not that there's not challenges, but it's a different state of being that brings a calmness and certainly more of a surrender to you, is to be at peace with yourself, to
Mm.
be, at peace with the journey, even with its challenges,
Mhm.
right? And so, because there's definitely times that, um, I think it's just a more settled feeling inside is really what I'm, trying to say there, is to have something that you can have a little bit better at maintaining,
Yeah,
because
peace. No
again,
kidding. Happy's not.
happy's kind of more of an excited, uplifted
Yep.
place, which is awesome, right?
Yeah.
But at peace is, you're just at peace with yourself, you're at
Yeah.
peace with life, and but you're also at peace with the challenges that they're going
Mhm.
to come, right? That's
Guaranteed.
just part of it. Yeah. So we're going from resistance to resilience, the journey
Mhm.
of surrender. So what is surrender then? What is surrender? Well, first of all, surrender is not being passive. It's not being defeated. It's not giving up, right? It's really just choosing to release the grip of the grip that resistance has had on you.
Mhm.
Um, Again, it's all about it. Now that all comes back to resistance, because resistance truly is the grip that has us in a state of tensity, wanting control, trying to do everything, and not living in the flow of life. So if you think about, trying to swim against the current in a river, it wears you out, right? It tires you out, and potentially you might lose to the river, depending on the speed of the flow
Mhm.
of that river, right? Well, life too has a flow to it. And when you're swimming against the flow of life, you're going to get tired because you're in resistance. You're going to
Mhm.
get, and it can wipe you out. It can take you out. It can literally, you know, uh, affect your health. It can affect your blood
Literally.
pressure. It can
Yeah.
affect your heart. It can affect, your nervous system. And so it's really like learning how to say, okay, let me quit flowing, or excuse me, let me quit swimming against the flow of life, and turn around and flow with the flow
Mhm.
of life.
Mhm.
Right. So, and on a spiritual level, I would say that surrender is allowing God into the space that you are struggling with, where that struggle lives within you, that troubled emotion, that not being able to calm your mind, not being able to settle yourself, is surrendering up, right? Surrendering
Mhm.
up, which is where the saying let go and let God comes from, and allowing that divine energy to come into your space, because a lot of times what we're trying to do is change things that we don't have the ability to change, and therefore keeps us in resistance. So by letting it up, surrendering it
Mhm.
up, that can bring a sense of that peace back in to
Mhm.
our overall system.
Oh, and it's a matter of how do you do it? So sometimes just getting quiet, really
Mhm.
important. Just get really quiet, especially when you feel like there was some for me now because I've been doing this with you for so many years. Um and even before that, it's really simple for me to catch it. To go, wait a second, how am I feeling right now? It's the I care approach, which I'm sure you and I will put into a live action role play, live and in person for all of you. But it's just stop for a second and go, whether it's prayer or meditation or getting quiet or whatever it is for somebody, just sit inside, take some deep breaths and really go, how am I feeling right now? and then start peeling back the layers of the emotions. And in surrendering to it, it doesn't mean that you're, yeah, like when you were first talking about surrender, it's not like tucking tail and hiding in a corner at all. Actually, it's the opposite of that, right? It's just sitting with whatever it is and then trying to understand what is real, what isn't real, and where are they going to take me? Where are these feelings taking me? And go on that journey. This is the journey that we're on, is to really surrender is the name of the
Mhm.
game.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And one of the core principles of surrender is acceptance.
mm,
And so remember, resistance to what is creates our
mhm,
suffering. So accepting what is really what starts to remove the suffering, right? Now, what is
mhm,
might be painful. So now we're going
mhm.
back to the inevitable pain. But ultimately, it's the acceptance of what is
It's
that
the
will bring
serenity
us.
prayer.
Yes, it
It
is.
is the serenity prayer. It's one of the
Yes.
things I absolutely love about Alcoholics Anonymous or 12-step programs, right?
Well, yes, and that's why it's been such an effective prayer that's lasted through the years, through the decades,
Mhm,
because it is rooted right back into acceptance and surrender.
mhm,
And
mhm.
if you think about how many people in the world go through their day wishing their day was different,
Mm,
or being in a relationship wishing the other person was different, or just looking at themselves wishing they were different,
mhm.
and having resistance to all of that. And some of people are doing all of those things, right?
Yeah.
Wishing their life was different.
Yeah. Yep.
And what happens when you're resisting what is, which is whatever the
Mhm.
current circumstances are in their life, the more they're creating the circumstances they don't want.
Yes. Yes.
And and it has nothing to do with the quality of the person that they are, how intelligent they are, or any of that. It's just simply lack of awareness around what it is they're actually doing, because what they're doing is resisting.
Mm,
Once you start to accept where you are,
mhm,
who you are in current time, and whoever you're with, whether it's a child or a spouse or a friend or a coworker or a boss or whoever it might be, accept them where they are. You now can start to change whatever really is right for you to change. And if there's something, and you have the power to change too,
mhm.
because you can't change
Yeah.
other people. But what's interesting is when you start to change, because you're not in resistance of whatever it is that you have really been judging. And
Mm,
judgment is a form of resistance, a pretty heavy duty form of resistance. So
mhm,
whatever you judge, you actually lock into place.
mm,
Whatever you judge, you're giving more power to. So now think about people who, are trying to maybe lose weight. I mean, this
mm.
is, the
We're
season of,
almost there.
you know,
We're almost
everyone's going to
there.
be making New Year's resolutions soon. So,
Mhm,
and all those things. And yet they're judging their body the
mhm.
way it is. And therefore, what they don't realize is that the more they judge their body for where it is, the more it's going to stay where it is, or even gain more weight, or whatever
Oh,
it is they're judging about their body.
I mean, you've been down. This was one of the, I think in the process of me getting more clear about who and where I wanted to be. I'll never forget you told both me and Alan, "Hey, write out your core values."
Mhm.
And this is just, I think, a great exercise for anybody to do, because like, how well do you know yourself? Right.
Yeah.
So how, and it's just a fantastic exercise in who are you and what is most important to you.
Mhm.
And anyway, so as I started to heal all of this, the attachment that I had, the judgment that I had to some of, I'll just say my addictions, because addictions are emotions. And if you're resisting whatever that resistance is, and if then you're judging it, addictions are emotions too.
Mhm.
Some people are literally addicted to, um, you know, beating
Well, you can
themselves
be
up.
addicted to drama.
Drama.
You
Oh, totally addicted to drama.
Mhm.
Totally addicted to drama. So, I
Mhm.
mean, there's many addictions that you can have, but the more I would judge my addictions, the more resistance I would have to healing them. And
Yeah.
so even just doing some of these, like, it's a simple exercise to sit down with yourself and put your core values together and dig into that. That was probably one of the most remember when I had the integrity, it's your five core emotions or core values. I think there were
Yeah,
five of
5 core
them.
values. Yep.
And integrity came up. And boy, was I dealt a heavy load with integrity. I just thought that that was wild, right? And only because
Mhm.
I had to sit down and I sat down and did the exercises because I wanted to release all of this, surrender to it. But it's kind of tricky if you don't know what it is. What are you?
Right.
So the judgment piece for me, and this is, I think, for everybody, we know when we're judging ourselves, right? I eat too much, I drink too much, I smoke, I do drugs, I don't know. Those are actual addictions. Um but it's here. It's here, it's in our mind, so we have to catch it first, like, oh, wait, that's give me some ways that I would judge myself because I can't think of any off the top, but you know them all. Like um I'm going to just pick on smoking. I'll always pick on smoking because that was something my whole life. And there was a time as I was trying to quit and you were trying to help this years ago. You were trying to help me quit smoking. We figured out that I was a closet smoker. And then you said to me, okay, let's bring you out of the closet, because there's more shame and judgment in hiding and sneaking and and I had no idea. And I did, and I came out of the closet and I stopped hiding. I didn't ever want my kids to catch me smoking, so that was different. But I did come out of the closet and I didn't hide it, not sneaky, the way that I was there. And it was a really wicked, the judgment, releasing the judgment. And towards the end of it all, by the time I ended up quitting smoking, I had no judgment on myself other than I was able to see it for what it was, which is for me, and I think everything is it's different for everybody. For me personally, with that one addiction was all of the emotions that were stored and stuffed and hidden that I didn't even see. But once I saw the trauma and healed the trauma, then it was like it just went away. It was like this miracle. I still, to this day, I'll be driving down the road and be like, I'll never smoke a cigarette again. Like, that's amazing, which is something that I'm deeply proud of because I finally got in there. But it definitely started with the judgment piece. And you helped me the years and years and years and years that you helped me with releasing the attachment. It's okay. You're fine. Don't beat yourself up. And then, over these last couple of years, the process has just been wonderful.
Yeah. Well, the judgment, the self-judgment we have, the judgment we have towards others, and usually if we have it going one direction, it's going the other direction. So, all these things. And one of the examples I use around, say, judging somebody else for something you think is wrong about them, what you were doing was judging yourself, right?
Yeah.
But one of the things, and this came up yesterday in one of my sessions, we all have people in our life that are going to probably rub us the wrong way or, feel they're not treating us right or whatever the case might be. That's, it's pretty human and common. So, a common pattern that people have is running late.
Mm.
So, if you have someone in your life who's running late or who has a pattern of running late, which is different than once in a while, like stuff happens
Things
to
happen.
everybody, right?
Yes,
That's not what
things
I'm talking about. I'm like, they're late. You can count on them being late. Here's the difference between judgment and acceptance. Judgment is you arrive on time and you're expecting them that this time they're going to arrive on time. And when they don't, you get all bent out of shape every time. Every time I come here, I'm on time and he or she is just never here and it's disrespectful. And you go through the litany of little irritants around this person that is running late. So here's the deal. If this is a person you want to stay in a relationship with, accept that they just run late. It's
Mhm.
not about you. It's not about you. They probably run late for everything.
Everything. Everything.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's not about you. So instead of being irritated by the person running late, you just simply bring a book, make peace with it, accept
Yeah.
that they just run late
Yeah.
and it's not personal. And
Yeah.
then bring a book and just count on them being late, accept that they are late.
Mhm.
Or you just start to modify your schedule a little bit. Well, they're usually wind up about 15 minutes later, so I'll just show up 15 minutes later,
Right.
whatever. But the point is you're letting go of the judgment around it. And so whether it's running late or whatever it is that they do that
Mhm.
bothers you, it's just accepting people for where they're at because
Right.
everybody has stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Everybody has stuff. Yeah.
everybody has stuff.
And
Yeah.
there's a I just want to keep people's privacy. So I'm just going to say somebody I care very much about, two people I care very much
Mhm.
about. Uh, I watched in live action an event take place where one person said to another person, unless you do this,
Ultimatum.
don't
Mhm.
bother coming.
Mm.
And I know all parties very, very well. And I was very surprised at their reaction. Not, no, I wasn't surprised. That's not true. To see uh passive aggressive, just to watch some behavior patterns break out and for me to watch it and care so much about the parties, I'm like, what would I have so first of all, I would not have been on the receiving end of a demand like that. So just think about it. We got the holidays coming up. We've got, families and, whatever it is going to happen. Well, you'll bump up against your patterns, especially if you haven't shifted them and changed them in your life yet. So pay attention as we do go through the holiday season, um, to this one thing. Um, if somebody gives you a command and you meet that with um, defensive, sticky, right? Like again, so I'm going to use the example. If somebody was to make a demand of me, which they wouldn't make a
Mhm.
demand of me, but if somebody was to make a demand of me, I would be like, well, that's interesting. Wow, this person's operating typically from a place of fear. And then
Mm.
you sit back and you go, we and I mean people should not be putting demands on other people. I mean, if you're not comfortable with a certain situation, then don't put yourself in the situation in the first place. That's that, right? So but then to demand somebody else follow through on whatever um is really getting into somebody's like, but again, I know this whole thing, so I'm watching this from a anyway. What ended up happening was there was a process that happened, and I was able to facilitate a very peaceful understanding on what was really going on. So the person on the receiving end was able to go, all right, my feelings did hurt, but it's okay. It's okay, and I can release it because person over here is in fear, right? So if we understand how this person runs late all the time, bring a book, set your clock back 15 minutes, reorg. And I mean, that's a thing too. You and I, Lisa, we've been in business for a long time. We've met many, many people at coffee shops or appointments or
Mhm.
what have you. Um, Basic rule of thumb is we start on our calendar clock.
Yeah.
And if we got to go, we got to go. And that's just the way it goes. So,
Yeah, and I haven't had many, but there has been a less than a handful have come in who have the pattern of running late, and um, one was pretty extreme. And so I said, this is what we're going to do. First of all, we're not going to you're going to arrive when you arrive,
mm,
and there's going to be no judgment around it. And so I'm not going to judge you if you're late, and I want you to do your best not to judge you if you're running late. Okay. Because the first step is accept. If you really want to change this pattern,
mhm.
then you first have to accept
I
the
feel like I
pattern.
might have run late in the past. That might have been one of my patterns, but anyway, it's a typical pattern. I mean, it's not.
It's a very common pattern,
Yeah.
very common pattern. It just has varying degrees.
Right.
varying degrees of
So
it,
what
right?
happened when you
So
allowed your
so, the pattern didn't completely clear, but it did get better for the period of
Mm,
time. She didn't work with me for a long period of time, but she did work with me for a shorter period of time. So if we would have continued working, we probably would have nailed that pattern, broke through that pattern for her. But, the running late pattern can also be an avoidance pattern as well. So either way, it's just recognizing that you could just sense the relief for her, because for her,
mhm.
it was a lot of pressure on herself. And when you think about somebody, if you just think about yourself running late, I mean, it can be very stressful,
Oh, it
right?
stresses
You've
me
got
out.
traffic and red lights and all these things. And then your resistance comes up about the need to hurry. And then the more you have the need to hurry, the more everything goes slower. Then you get the slow drivers in front of you. So then you're just building up that internal resistance, and it's not getting you there any faster. So, but again, going back to the judgment is really just an important piece, is whatever you're judging, just really pay attention to how strongly you're judging it, how often you judge it, and
Mhm,
what have been the results of judging whatever it is that you're judging.
mhm,
Probably not great results. And
mm-mm.
then start to learn how to really accept what it is. Doesn't mean you're condoning. There's a difference between acceptance and condoning. Okay. Acceptance is just accepting what is reality,
Mhm.
basically.
Right.
Condoning is saying, that's okay. You keep running late. It's not a problem, and blah, blah, blah. And you're justifying it, and you're, condoning it. It's like, if we take it to a different example, like say someone's in an abusive relationship, part of it is if they hit you in the face every day, and they've been hitting you in the face every day for 10 years, accept that they hit you in the face,
That
and they're
is
gonna
so
hit you in the face
funny.
tomorrow. I mean, seriously, it's like they're gonna hit you in the face
Yeah,
every day. You
yeah.
have to accept that. It
Mhm,
doesn't mean you're condoning it. It
mhm.
just means that you're accepting it. So now what you can do is you can quit justifying it or condone, whatever you're doing with that, and somehow you're going in for the next hit tomorrow. Is accept that you'll be hit tomorrow, and then start to choose differently.
Right. I mean, yeah, that's such an extreme example.
Yeah.
And it's
Well,
so not funny. I believe me, I've been in an abusive you've been in an abusive
yeah.
relationship. So
Yeah.
we've been in abusive relationships. So it's that's the most extreme, but it's so true because it can be applied to even the
Yes.
running late, like so
Hmm.
like it may have been a pattern of mine, but I highly doubt it because if I'm 5 minutes late, I get anxious. Like I for me, like, oh my gosh, I'm 5 minutes late, right? So I don't know that that was my particular pattern, but um
Yeah, I don't think so.
releasing the attachment to outcome. Really, it's just
Yeah.
going, okay, it is what it is. And now, I mean, even when you could pick road rage as an example,
Mhm.
somebody cuts you off, right? Like, how do you
Mhm.
respond to that? Like, now today, I just, I think we all better just give who's ever's driving crazy space, move
Yeah,
yourself away from it, out of it, and don't go anywhere near it. And that
that's right.
includes like strange environments. But all right, Lisa. Well, how
Mm.
about
Well,
resilience?
yeah, so when you, really bring surrender into your life, it's going to be the birth of resilience. And
Mm,
resilience, again, is more about not being, when those challenges come, that we talked about earlier, when those challenges come, it's your ability to bounce back.
yep.
Resilience is not about not having challenges. It's about how you deal with those challenges when they arrive. And the more you live in a state of surrender and acceptance, the more easily you're going to be able to maneuver those challenges and bounce back that much quicker. And as you bounce back from those experiences, what you're doing is you're accumulating wisdom through the experience, and therefore you become stronger after the challenge than before. So these
Yeah.
challenges are where we become stronger. If we
Yeah.
don't have challenges, we can be a little, resting on our laurels, or become complacent or whatnot. It's through the challenges in life that grows us in
Well, and
strength.
Lisa, the challenges are everywhere. I mean,
Mhm.
there are challenges everywhere. How you deal with them, it's like a muscle.
Mhm.
So, in my astrology class, my once a week astrology group,
Yep.
we were talking about um, 3, 6, and 9. So when you write something down and you set an intention and, you know,
Yeah.
dream big, word it the right way, talk to universe, meditate on it, but literally 3 times a day, what is it that you would like to have happen in your life? And I picked, and I'll just share it because it's an exercise I'm going to do. It's like your 30-day walk. So I'm like, I really would like to sell this house. Okay. So I wrote down, actually, I'll say it live and in the flesh. What did I say? I am so happy my home is sold. I'm so happy my home is sold. So I'm going to, this is what I'm doing. I got my little workbook. I do believe that there's some power in writing by hand. I think it's a neurological thing. So I've decided to do this by hand. And I'm going to actually bring in your 30-day walk stuff too, for just for fun. So you write it 3 times in the morning, 6 times in the afternoon, 9 times at night. And here's what's going to happen. And this is what I know for sure. These are muscles that the more you exercise them, the stronger that they get. And because they're hard right now, just because it's a challenge to, I mean, even in the example I was sharing about a situation between two people I care very much about, um, we're all going to bump up against, this is guaranteed. And then you got the holidays. Like, what's going to, and there's a lot of feelings that are going to come up for people. Um, and there's a lot of things that I don't know about you, Lisa, but when I start to scroll through, just kind of catching the headlines of what's going on out there in the world, it gets me queasy. And because there's so much pain that people are experiencing, and there's just a lot of pain in the world, right? So the only thing we have control over, that anybody has control over, is what does it feel like inside here? See, that we can fix. And that's why you and I are really passionate about, sharing some of these big bullet points with people. So in my exercise, I'm like, okay, this is a muscle. I'm an excellent manifester. Let me see if I can strengthen it. Let me play around with it. So what's going to happen? I'm going to stay positive 3 times in the morning, 6 times in the middle of the day, and 9 times at night. Okay, well, that's much better than some of the other junk that we will put into our trunk. So little exercises that you can exercise the muscle of resilience, and you will at some point in time pat yourself on the back and say, good job. Like, it's working. This thing that Lisa and Sondra are talking about is actually working for you, or
Mhm.
for whoever's listening. It's just make a commitment, do a 30-day walk, discipline, right? Very important,
Mhm.
self-discipline. So this is my new little fun that we'll start to play
Good.
around with.
Yeah. Life is so much about experimentation. We
Yeah.
just get stuck in a rut doing the same stuff over and over again.
Yeah.
So we want to throw something new into the equation on a regular basis to, it opens up different synapses in our brain. It starts to make new grooves, because when we get into, our brain literally has grooves in it, where we're just keep going, same stuff, same stuff, same stuff. So we need to bring in something that just starts to make new grooves, but positive grooves like what you're talking about.
Right.
And really, recognizing that, well, it's the saying, um, if you keep doing the same thing, you'll keep getting the same result.
Right.
So if you like the
Denial.
result, if you like the result, keep doing the
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
But if you don't like the result, you've
Right.
got to do something differently. And then that's where we
Right.
get to, experience the discomfort of something new, the discomfort of change. But that's where it all happens. So, that's
Mhm.
just how it goes. Got to create a new groove into your
Yeah.
life on a consistent basis, and get those
Yep.
grooves so they're healthy grooves, and healthy patterns in our life.
Yeah.
But one of the things that you had mentioned was about, what's going on internally, and then what's going on externally. And that really brings in the dance between control and
Hmm.
release.
Hmm.
Okay. So uh, when you are, there's a difference between having healthy control, healthy self control, and being controlling.
Hmm.
When someone becomes controlling, that's not a healthy sense of control. When they have a need to control, it's actually a form of
Resistance comes
resistance.
in. I know that need so well, but yes, the
Yeah.
need, I got to control what's happening. It's that
Yes.
that need is absolutely out of control.
Yeah. And that's one of the bigger needs that so many people have, is that
Yep.
unhealthy need for control. We have an authentic need to have control in our lives. But when we feel that authentic need isn't being met, then we go again needy for it. So we go needy for control, which becomes controlling, which then becomes like a repellent that really, repels people away. Right. And then people don't want to be around the controlling person. And the more people don't want to do what the controlling person is saying, the more controlling they become. And it just becomes this vicious cycle of like, wow, it can become really intense.
Yep.
So knowing how to do the dance between control and releasing, right, is
Mm-hmm.
really looking at, going back to the serenity prayer and everything that we've talked about, is knowing what you have the ability to control
Hmm.
and what you don't have the ability to control, which we've threaded through many of our podcasts already. We haven't had that
Yeah.
many, right? So it's a pretty big subject. So but you just ask yourself the question, do I even have control over these things that I'm trying to control? And if you don't, and you have to be honest about it. Well, no, I'm sure I can get him to do this. Okay. You got to be really have the honest integrity going, right? So you look at it, and then you um, reflect on, no, I really don't. So how can I respond? What do I have control over? I have control over how I can respond to what's going on. Say you're a
Can I just
mom in the grocery store. Let me just do
can I
one
just
quick example.
yeah, yeah.
One quick example. Okay.
Oh, and then
In the
remind me what my example is. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. You have a mom in the grocery store and her 4-year-old is having a temper tantrum on the floor. Well, of course, you've got embarrassment running, you've got all sorts of stuff running. And the more she tries to control that temper tantrum, the more it goes out of control. So, the best thing that a mom or dad could do is go to a place of calm and then calm the child. But if they're getting all up in their stuff, it's going to
Silence.
just amplify everything. Right.
Mhm. Yeah.
So,
It's so
what would
right when
your,
you started talking about that, I'm like, oh my gosh, this just happened yesterday. Okay. So if I haven't said this before, I'll say it again. The color code. The color code is, once we did that on our whole family and realized that Alan and Stacy Mia are color coded almost identical, and Aurora and Mommy are color coded almost identical, which means basically our core values are the same. And I got the bubbles. Here comes Aurora. Is that hilarious? Or yes, okay. So that's just kind of funny.
it's our
Um,
third co-host.
yeah, I know the bubbles. And that's Aurora, by the way. She's the one that does this to my phone. So Aurora is 9, and control versus no control, right? If you're a parent, you are in charge of your child's development, whether they become good humans. That's the only goal that I have in raising my children, is that they become wonderful, wonderful human people with big hearts and of service to others. And that's the goal. So Aurora's been a little defiant lately, and she's got this amazing imagination. And so in her imagination, she doesn't need to learn math and she doesn't need to learn English. And she gets home and, do you have any homework? No, I'm in the 3rd grade. I don't have homework. I'm like, okay, but you're not passing your English and you're kind of not really. And when I say passing, she's so intelligent. I'm like, she needs to nail this thing. She needs to get A's. Like, she's smart, like almost to the point where we thought she was gifted. She is smart. So
Mhm.
so she's just like, she just decided she doesn't care. She just doesn't care. So not yesterday, but the day before, during this whole process, she drives me nuts. I'm like, with Stacy Mia, all I have to tell her to do is what to do. And then she just gets it done. With Aurora, God, I want to pull my hair out. So not gonna lie, like I have to get in my mommy mean voice and like explain to her what to do. So yesterday, Alan sits me down. It's a big conversation. He's sitting me down and he has to have a conversation with me. Okay. He's like, "You're really hard on her. You're going to turn her into something that you don't want her to be." Blah, blah, blah. It's the
Mm,
conversation. And my kick reflex was to get defensive because,
mm,
and I said, "You don't know how to raise her. I'm like her. You're not." And it was, we did a little back and forth and it was kind of funny, not funny, but I
mhm.
had to stop for a minute and go, all right, what can I do? What can I do? Could I handle it differently? Okay, so how does somebody talk to me? If I was a child, like how would I respond? What would be the best way for me to respond? And last night I just had a great night with her and sat with her and talked to her and she's got all mad at me about her hair. She just doesn't like to brush her hair and she's not very good at shampooing and conditioning like cuz then she gets like oil streaks in the hair cuz she uses too much conditioner and doesn't rinse it all out. Little stupid things, right?
Mhm.
So I just walked her through the whole thing. I just walked her through the whole thing. And instead of her yelling when I'm brushing her hair, "That hurts, that hurts, that hurts." I'm like, "You have a tough head. I know because I've had you since you were born." Anyway, releasing my control. So I had a completely different, and this is a parenting thing, right? Like,
Yeah.
how do I parent somebody just like me? Whoa, Stacy's
Well,
easy.
yeah. I mean,
Aurora.
you could put so for those who aren't familiar with the color code, it's a personality assessment that is available to both adults and children. And I am putting together that I'm going to launch at the beginning of the year, parenting by personality. So all these little questions you've got that you're saying right now are going to be answered in that course. How do you raise someone who is a yellow in the color code,
Yeah,
right? And you've got
yeah,
a yellow mom
yep,
and a yellow um, child, right? And so you would think, well, gosh, that'll be easy because they're like me. Not necessarily. Not necessarily.
right.
And the four of you, Stacy Mia being like almost identical chart to Alan, which just it's so interesting. Like you
What?
could overlay their blend of colors because there's four colors. I don't want to go too deep into that, but four colors and they basically have pretty much the same percentage of each color. There's spitting image,
Yeah,
right? So, but anyway, but that's part of it. By learning how to deal with, raise in a healthy way your little yellow,
yeah.
right? And she's becoming not as, she's growing up, she's already
Uh,
9, right?
yeah.
Will make a huge impact on yourself as a yellow,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But also on how she can develop those strengths of being a yellow, but also recognize the yellows come with some interesting limitations as well.
Right.
And as you have worked on your limitations and
Mhm.
continue to work on your limitations as a yellow, right? It's going to help you to
Mhm.
help her with hers.
Well, and that's the dance of control. Okay,
Yes.
so as Alan, who I just love him. I can't even just I'm so grateful to travel in this life with him as my partner. Um, but to have him and how the whole series of events went, he
Mhm,
sits me, we have this big blow up. She's not listening. I get activated. I'm totally
mhm,
activated because she's not listening. So raise my mommy mean voice. And the girls know, why do I have to use my mommy mean voice? Why don't you just listen? And
mhm,
it's so, and Alan's just watching this frustration happen. And then the next day after, when him and I were alone, the girls were on school, just to sit down and say, okay, here's what I see. And I'm like, well, that's not what I see. Okay, but wait a second. Is he right? And the
mhm.
truth is, she's activating all of these emotions of frustration and then the control and she's my daughter. And I'm like, all right, that's what I can do. Give her
Yeah,
more time,
yeah,
patience, uh, in the temper tantrum on the grocery store floor. What I can
yeah,
control is how I respond, and
yeah.
that was real life example.
And as you're talking, of course, I'm kind of going into coach listening now. But also consider this, that perhaps the frustrations that Alan has had with you and your yellowness and his not being that yellow might be some of the same frustrations you're experiencing now dealing with your own yellow that's not you.
Yeah.
And then, right? You see
Yeah.
the
Yes.
connection. And, what do you want? If you feel the frustration of, that personality, which by the way, which is why happy is so important to you, is because your driving core motive as a yellow personality is fun. So that's
Mhm.
why happy has a kind of a different ring for you, has a
Yeah.
different meaning and sense of importance to you than perhaps, another
Yeah.
color.
Yeah.
Certainly another color, right? So fun is what drives you in life. And
Mhm.
that's what's also going to, drive Aurora too.
Yeah.
So, but if you think about when you're interacting with Alan and you get frustrated or you have your own activations around that form of communication, check and see if you can't translate it to Aurora,
Mm.
right? Is
Mhm.
she feeling what I feel when I feel like I'm not being understood, or,
Mhm.
someone's frustrated with me and all I really want is patience and all I really want is to be understood and all these things, and that, so again,
Mhm.
it's getting out of, it's shifting the perspective. And in this case, you're shifting it in a couple different ways, right?
Mhm.
From
Mhm.
receiving to giving. And that
Yeah.
might be really beneficial as you continue on this lovely family journey.
Well, I think
So,
that you really getting into helping raise kids.
mhm,
I just think raising children right now is an art form.
yeah.
Just because they're just exposed to so much. And
Mhm,
what my 11-year-old's going through right now, and what popped up on her computer as she was doing homework,
mhm.
she'll never get it out of her mind, and she still brings it up, and we have to continue to talk about it. Like Stacy's so easy for me. She's so easy for me. And I think Aurora will be too. I'm just
Yeah.
right now I'm bumping up against
Yeah. Well, and Stacy is a blue personality, right?
red.
She's red. She's a red personality.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. She's a red blue.
Yeah. She's
Yeah.
a red
So
blue.
she's a red personality. So her driving core motive is power, but reds are so productive.
Yes.
So she's going to have that natural where, the yellows want to go have fun.
Yeah,
Reds want to get
we're in
down to
La La
work,
Land. We're all over the
right?
place.
Reds want to get to work and just,
Yeah.
nose to the
Yeah.
grindstone. Anyway, so we'll go incorporate that, weave that in as we go
Yes.
around the color code and so
Yeah.
forth. But it's a really powerful, and I'm really excited about it. So we'll bring more details as they arrive. But it'll be after the holidays, so
Yeah.
very excited.
Absolutely. Because if you have kids, I
Hmm.
mean, you know what we're talking about right now. It's tough. And
Yes.
this is just a simple, fun, get to
Yeah.
know you, get to know them. And yeah.
Yeah.
So,
From a different perspective, yeah, and have such a deeper understanding, which will
right.
create more connection and growth for all of you. So
Absolutely.
another piece to surrender is embracing the unknown.
Mm,
It, fear of the unknown is one of our biggest fears.
hmm.
And that's why death falls into there, because a lot of people fear death because what's going to happen to me? How am I going to feel? How am I going to die? And what's going to happen after I leave and all that kind of stuff. That's why death falls into one of the bigger fears as well. But ultimately, the fear of the unknown. We so crave certainty. And yet, life is not certainty. Life
Mm,
is all full of unknown. And when we can start to let go of that need for certainty, which again, another need, right, is another
hmm.
form of resistance, that need for certainty, we can start to really embrace life as a path, or um, a land of unlimited possibilities,
Hmm.
right? And what does the universe have in store for me today? And approach life like that. Obviously, we're going to have plans and a schedule and things
Hmm.
like that.
Yeah.
But instead of worrying about uncertainty, instead of letting it stifle you and live in fear, it's embrace the uncertainty as a gift. As we, the things, if you think about the things that have happened in your life, and I'm talking to everyone, right,
Mhm.
in your life, the things that are most likely the most amazing things in your life were unplanned. You couldn't have planned them.
Mhm.
And so that's what's waiting for us, and there's going to be more of that waiting for us when we can let go of the fear of uncertainty and embrace the uncertainty, embrace the unknown, so that we can live with a sense of mystery and what is
Adventure.
adventure.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
adventure.
I'm actually finally starting to realize to I don't want to say realize, I think conceptually I've always thought this, we are all
Mhm.
here for a reason. And I don't believe that. I know that for sure. We are here. We have a soul. We are so much
Yeah.
bigger than this skin that we're in. Um, we're here for a reason. One of my favorite parts of it is that we get to create our reality. This is why I'm doing the 369. This is why I'm going to do the 30-day, because
Yeah.
it's an adventure. It is what's going to happen, right? Like, it's
Yeah.
all fun. It really is fun. I'm not saying it's easy because the challenges are every day, but it's
Yes,
fun.
it is. Yes.
Yeah.
And yeah, I have a sign "Life is a journey," but everyone's seen the quotes and all the different quotes that run across the social media platforms,
Mhm.
and it's like, "Oh, that's a great quote," and they repost it, and then a minute later, they're back into their fear of uncertainty. You know,
Yeah.
at least you get a little moment there of adventure and whatnot. But I was going to mention this earlier, and it came out. It's coming back in when I take people through my emotional process, which is about releasing. I was thinking about this as I was, looking at the podcast subject of today. And when I take people through the eye care approach, which is my process that I use in coaching, it's it's pieces of it are just letting go of resistance and opening
Mhm.
up moments of surrender.
Mhm.
Letting go of resistance and opening up little moments of surrender. And every time over the last 17 years that I've been doing this, I have never had anybody who doesn't come out just even just a little bit lighter. But
Mhm.
sometimes it's a lot lighter.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's, a whole trajectory change just from that one process. But it doesn't
Mhm.
matter if it's a little or a lot. What matters is that the needle is moving in the right direction.
Mhm.
And there's a little bit of
Letting
release
go.
from the resistance
Right.
and moments of that surrender. And it's a beautiful thing. It's really powerful. And it's not the only method out there, but it certainly is one of the more powerful methods that are out there. So
Works for me. And I
that's
use it
right.
all the time.
And I
And
wouldn't be doing this 17 years later if it didn't work.
right. I mean, right, what popped into my head about the eye care approach is when I was in Vegas with you, I
Yeah.
was in so much pain. That was probably the darkest I felt, really dark. Um, and then you came over in a 911 fashion because you live there and I was there. And I don't remember the exact specifics, but uh, it was about, wasn't it surrender? I was a gold statue and I just had to walk around it in just a visualization of emotions, right? It was just like stubborn. And it was this big, like Sphinx pyramid type of gold statue that was just adamant with, like, I am not moving. And it
Yeah.
was
That you were
me
visualizing in your mind.
in
Yes.
my
Hmm.
mind,
Hmm.
and then I just, as you helped guide me through the eye care approach, I just ended up walking around it. And I got instant relief. That was definitely a pretty radical release, and surrender. Um and then even in doing the process of releasing that, I was able to come back to Dallas. And what was it, 3 weeks later, then there was Miracle Monday. So there was a lot of like, but getting through these emotions are so, it's easy to go there if you just do it.
Well, even in the years ago, this was years ago when we were doing this on the phone, even though
Oh,
we
the
were
tetany?
like, yes,
Yeah, the tetany. Oh, yeah.
yeah. So
You can
you went
share the
into
story.
you went
Yeah.
into a state of where your body was involuntarily going into like cramping, right?
Mm-hmm.
Into
Mm-hmm.
tightening up. And
Yeah,
so
I
you,
could not. My hands. It felt like rigor mortis, is like when someone dies, like their bones. That's
Mhm,
what it felt like. I didn't know it was a condition called tetany, but
mhm,
you did.
yeah.
And I'm on the phone, and I mean, I'm just an emotional mess for reasons that were kind of frankly valid.
Mhm,
Um, but when you walked me through the process, I'm like laying on the floor, and now I'm freaking out because I'm having a physical
mhm,
response to something emotional. And I'd never had that happen that one time with the hands. Obviously, it happened in my back with the nerve pain, different. Anyway, so it came in here, and the more that we would release the emotion just by sinking into it and feeling it instead of resisting it, it
mhm,
was me resisting that made it so much worse and
yeah.
scarier. And then it got more terrifying and what's happening to my body. And then I called you. It was an emergency.
Mhm,
And you walked me through a process. And I was like, by the end of, what was it, 10 minutes, maybe?
right.
And it
Probably,
was,
yeah, something, yeah,
my hands were fine.
yeah.
And I'm like, whoa, that's a thing. Mm,
That's a
yeah.
thing, yeah. And
That
you
was
came out
probably
of it.
that was a powerful release too.
Yeah, and so now think about the child having the tantrum. The more stressed you get, the more whatever you get, the worse it
Mm-hmm.
gets. So what I was on the other side of the phone was a calming, stabilizing presence that was guiding you
Mm-hmm.
through the eye care approach, helping you,
Right.
helping you to stabilize as well, right?
Yeah.
But also to move into surrender, because
Mm-hmm.
tetany is a control thing as well. You are losing control of your body,
Mm-hmm.
so that's a very scary thing.
Very
That's why
scary.
control is such a big issue,
Mm-hmm.
which is why surrender, if so many people have an issue around surrender because the control issues are so strong that it literally, can come into your body.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but yeah, so that was really powerful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Experience. Both of them were very powerful experiences. And then we've had all sorts of in between the spectrum over the
Many
years.
in betweens,
Yeah.
yes, because
Yeah.
the eye care approach is something that
Yeah.
you could do anytime you need to, and you should,
Anytime.
because
Yeah.
just getting to
Yeah.
know yourself.
Yeah. So to wrap this up, the journey from resistance to resilience is really just a testament to the transformative power of surrender.
Mhm.
And as we release that need for control and accept the present moment and whatever that entails, whether it's people, whether it's the environment you're in, and navigate those challenges with resilience, we discover an inner strength that transcends the trials that life will bring you. So, that dance between resistance and surrender is an ongoing process and one that leads not only to personal growth, but to a profound sense of peace and mastery in the face of life's uncertainties.
Yes, ma'am. Let me tell ya. I will say it's even you and I doing this.
Hmm.
Really, it's to help anyone who needs it. Anyone who needs it. But
Yeah.
there's a level of vulnerability for sure,
Oh, for
and
sure.
I'm like, I don't want to name any names because I don't want to violate somebody's privacy, but
Right.
it's been, even the tetany thing, just even talking about it right now, I'm like, whoa, that was so gnarly. And then all the processes in between. That was one of the first ones. That was actually one of the first ones. And I will say it was a fear around one of my older children's realities, stepchildren's realities. And the control was the thing. I could not control what she was doing. And I wanted to because it was dangerous. And it was, and so it was I had no control. And the minute we really released the control of others, and this is another parenting thing, your kids get to a certain age, they're going to do what they're going to do. It's That's what I'm saying. You just hope you did a good job, right? But releasing the control is really hard, especially when someone's in a dangerous situation. So, this has been a really wonderful, wonderful topic that I think we'll absolutely revisit as time goes by
Yeah.
because we didn't even share the half of it.
Yeah.
Although I think we gave you guys some really
Well,
good examples,
bite-sized pieces. Yeah. Mhm.
bite-sized pieces of maybe just to pay attention to where are you resisting and what does that look like
Yeah.
as we move forward from here. So,
Yeah.
any
Absolutely.
last surprises, Lisa?
No, that's all for today. Just want to, thank you for joining us and supporting our channel. And we appreciate, everything that you bring to us, even though obviously uh, we can't see you, but we feel you, and that's what's really important. We feel you, and we appreciate when you watch and when you like and share and comment and so forth. So we
It's
are
been a
working in.
surprise too. We do. We want you to, hit the like button, subscribe,
Yeah,
watch it, engage with us. We really love that. I mean, some of the messages, I am still surprised at who ends up watching this. And by the way, if you
mhm,
are watching this, it's because your soul wants to experience this journey from more of a higher consciousness place. So,
yeah,
yep. Thanks you guys for joining us. Thank you, Lisa.
yes. Yes, thank you, Sondra.
All right. See y'all next week.